The channel message that came through today was very loud and clear. And it's that maybe it's not what we think it is. What do I mean by that? Well, we are often creatures of reaction. Something happens, we react. We see something, we react. But I'm going to challenge you to take a pause before you react. Sometimes that pause is a few seconds. Sometimes that pause is a few minutes. And maybe no reaction is needed at all. Because it's not what we think it is. Our environments often can be confirmations for the thoughts in our mind, and our thoughts in our mind are not always true. We like to tell stories to ourselves. We've been doing it since we were born. And sometimes those stories have been taught to us from other people, and those stories are not true. So take driving, for example. Maybe you are driving and someone cuts you off and you react. You're quick to get frustrated or angry. Fair enough. You don't want to get into an accident. But maybe that cutoff had nothing to do with you. Maybe that person was distracted by the other person in the car, or they were having a conversation and you were not even a second thought. They were only thinking about themselves and where they needed to be. It wasn't an intentional act to cut you off. It was just a matter of them living in their own world. And it's not what you think it is. So maybe when we take this lens and we move it into your own lives, what does that look like? How is this helpful? Maybe it's not what you think it is. Maybe when you have an idea for something or you have a vision for how you want your life to go, your thoughts are going to be reflected back to you. And if you doubt yourself, that is going to show up. And if you are committed to the vision or the thought you have, the opposite will show up to test how strong is that vision for yourself. And let me give you an example of this. When you've heard musicians talk or actors talk about how they knew that they were going to be successful in that way. Everyone defines success differently, but they knew they were going to be successful. They knew they were going to be an actor. They knew they were going to be a successful musician. And they tell stories about how along their path, people came along and said, "Oh, you'll never make it. It's oversaturated. No one makes it in the music business. There's a million actors out there. What makes you stand out?" And it's because in those moments, they went within and they had to decide if they were going to give in to that self-doubt that could very easily win. But it was like a test. The environment showed up to test them. How strong is that vision for yourself? How much do you love yourself and are going to be true to yourself and what you want? And each time they rejected the external because they went within and they validated themselves. They believed so wholly and so fully in themselves that it was going to happen. And it did. So it's not too far of a stretch to believe that you are also capable of that, whatever that is for you. Maybe it is being an actor. Maybe it is being a musician. Maybe it's something else. It can be whatever obscure or weird or normal, whatever thought you have about yourself and that vision. And you have to believe that the environment is going to either reflect it back to you or it's going to challenge you. And the idea is that when you go within, the external gets clearer. The vision is clearer. It's not what you think it is. Just because someone is challenging you, it's not asking you to give in to your fear and get defensive. It's asking you, are you so committed to you that the external is going to reflect it? Can you say, yes, this is for me? Because if you pass enough of those tests, it's going to come to fruition. And the amount of time is irrelevant. Is it quick for everyone? No, it's not. But we also have to step out of the paradigm that you have to be successful before you're 30 or else it's never going to happen. There are plenty of stories about how that's just not true. There are very, quote unquote, successful people out there that weren't noticed or even paid attention to until they were after 40 or after 50. And very successful actors that didn't come around until they were 70 or 80. And these are just actors and musicians. Those are just two categories. Right? You could be a world leader, you could be a politician, you can be an artist, you can be anything you really truly want to be. But you have to be able to go within and take that pause and believe that maybe it's not what you think it is. The external is going to validate the thought you have. And if you doubt your vision, then the external is going to reflect that back to you. It's kind of that idea where if you get a color in your mind or you get a song stuck in your head and then you start to hear it everywhere, you see that color everywhere. Maybe you want to buy a certain car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. It's that process. It is your thought having so much power and ability that it starts to be reflected back into your environment. And so if you want your environment to change, if you want your circumstances to change, if you want your life path to change, then it's up to you to go inward and trust yourself and love yourself enough to say that this is what is for you. And then your environment is going to start to reflect that. But you can't expect it to come fast because we have thoughts all the time. But if you're committed to a vision and you consistently put out that vibration, that energy, that thought, nothing else can come in. Nothing else can be shown to you because you have been consistent with that vision. If one day you want to be an artist and the next day you want to be a baker and the next day that's not consistent. So you have to be clear and consistent with what your vision is for yourself. If you want your life to change, you have to be consistent in the vision of what you see for yourself. And when that takes place, your environment has to reflect it back to you. It's how this all works. So maybe it's not what we think it is. When that doubt comes in from someone else, that is your own doubt talking to you through another person. And you need to deal with that doubt, because if you don't deal with that doubt, if you don't pay attention and say, no, I really, that is a doubt, yes, but it's not true. That doubt is not true. I am capable of doing this. And it starts to accelerate at that point because you've acknowledged that your doubt exists. It's a perfectly normal human experience and emotion, but it should not dictate your inner world. It should not dictate your truth. Commit. So maybe your environment is not what you think it is. Maybe it is what you are actively putting out into it. If you are in a negative situation, that has more to deal with you than it does with the person with you or the environment around you. If you're an inherently happy person and you're pretty content with your life, that's because that's the vision you have for yourself. It's not just because God blessed you miraculously. It's because you were so committed to the vision of your happiness that is what is now being reflected back to you. And people can talk about labels and projections about how, if they're having a bad day and they're taking it out on other people and they're projecting on you. Is that possible? Absolutely, it is. But if your life is relatively calm without a lot of drama and it is being reflected back to you, some kind of doubt, that's you doubting you. And until you deal with that, you won't see your vision come to fruition. That is how these actors and musicians and famous people got to where they were. And it's not about being famous. It's about having such a committed vision that when the doubt came up, when that self-doubt came up, they dealt with it face to face, head on. Yes, I see you. I experience this internally. It feels uncomfortable. But if I can't believe in me, no one else is going to believe in me either. It starts with you. It starts on the inside. And when you deal with the inside, you go back within and you take a pause instead of react. That is when it starts to show up on the external in your environment. And sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's slow, but it's the patience and the consistency. So I ask again, have you thought that maybe it's not what you think it is?